Chapter 1707. Moreover, if this spot started to fester, Leah seemed to be in a good mood. Thinking about how the ulcers in his mouth would remind him that this was the price he had to pay for offending Meng Meng in the next few months, Lee's lips curled up slightly. If you don't want to eat with your front teeth like a rodent, don't say anything else that offends her. If there's a next time, I won't have such a good temper anymore, understand? With that, Leah patted the man's head lightly, as if he was educating his own disobedient pet dog, with a strange gentleness. The moment Leah touched him, the man could not stop trembling. He was not even that afraid when Leah crushed his teeth, but when Leah patted his head lightly, he was so scared that he peed his pants. A puddle of yellow liquid flowed out from his lower body, and the stench instantly permeated the air. Everyone present had an extremely acute sense of smell. Even a bird like Gregory was a few times more sensitive to smell than a normal human, not to mention Elvis, Leah and Barit, who had an acute sense of smell, as well as Snake, who was a snake that knew where its prey was just by smell. Leah took a step back in disdain, frowning slightly. I said before, what would happen if you pee? Tske, why are you so naughty? Before Leah finished his sentence, the man shrunk even more. He sprawled on the ground, trying his best to cover his pee with his body so that it would not be discovered, as if no one would find out that he was peeing if he hid like that. But what was the use of such a method? Elvis did not want Gu Meng Meng to be contaminated by his dirty breath, so he carried her up and strode away without another word. The rest also did not say a word, and just followed Gu Meng Meng out. As they walked out of the refinement hall, Leah used F language to instruct the guards at the entrance. Then, the guards used the walkie-talkie to instruct something, and not long after, someone brought 2 black wolf dogs into the refinement hall. The sounds coming from inside were indescribable, but luckily Gu Meng Meng had already walked far away, and could not hear them at all. Gu Meng Meng returned to her room, feeling even more depressed than when she saw Wang Suyun yesterday. How should she put it? It was just that it was uncomfortable to be pinched. Leah waved his tail and laid on Gu Meng Meng's knees, wrapping his large tail around her waist. Gu Meng Meng instinctively reached out her hands to rub a couple of times. She was careless, it was just a conditioned reflex out of habit. Meng Meng, I'll take you out to play, okay? Gu Meng Meng was in a daze, as if she did not hear Lee's suggestion. Leah was not discouraged and continued. Fei Rue has been recovering well recently and has already been transferred from the sterile ward to a normal ward. Do you want to see him? I'll take you there. Yes, their whole family was against having another male in the family. But if this male could make Gu Meng Meng smile, then their resistance could be dissolved by themselves. But Gu Meng Meng still had no reaction. Leah pursed her lips and gave Snake a look. I'll call Bai Lan and Zhang Jinqing over to play with you for a while? Snake asked softly. Gu Meng Meng still did not respond. Snake sighed silently, then looked towards Elvis. Chapter 1708. Gu Meng Meng's pupils wavered, but she still reacted. She looked up at Elvis with a complicated expression on her face. She didn't say a word. She just laid in Elvis's arms listlessly. Elvis patted Gu Meng Meng's back gently and said gently, as a male, abandoning his own partner to be with another female is a crime worthy of going up on the platform of the deity's punishment in the beast world. Not to mention the fact that he had abandoned the precious female cub, leaving it to suffer and face dangers and difficulties alone. If this was the beast world, the 2 points I just mentioned would be enough to make him a sinner in the eyes of all the males in the beast world. Because he has shamed the word male. Even stray beasts would not take him in. They would gang up on him and kill him in the cruelest way possible. Gu Meng Meng pursed her lips. She knew that Elvis was right. It was not hard to understand why normal males would view him as an enemy. It was also easy to understand why the stray beasts would also view him as an enemy. Stray beasts were indeed cruel. They would humiliate and torture the females they snatched. But there was one thing. No matter how cruel, how bloodthirsty, how evil and unbridled they were, none of the stray beasts would turn around and hurt the female who had abandoned them. They were extremely cruel to everyone in the world, including themselves. But they would never do anything to hurt their partners even if they died. Peter was the only exception. He had snatched the female who had abandoned him back. But even though he had snatched her back, he had never really hurt a single hair on Natalie's head. At the end of the day, he still loved her very much. That was why he was able to clear his stray beast identity and let Natalie accept him again. She even mated with him and gave birth to their own child. Wang Xiaoxin said that the thing Gu Mengmeng brought to the beast world was called hope. Peter was one of the hopes she had brought there. He was the last glimmer of hope in the abyss of despair that was the stray beasts. But it allowed them to no longer live like the Walking Dead. They had to work hard to raise their levels. Once they reached 5th level, they would return to find their own females and try everything they could to make her love them again. Although the chances of success were so slim, just the requirement of reaching the peak of 5th level had killed many males. But at the very least, for the sake of this hope, they restrained themselves and no longer snatched or harmed other females. This was all so that when they went back to beg for mercy in the future, they would have one less reason to be hated. Hence, regardless of whether it was an ordinary orc or a stray beast, they all despised the act of abandoning their partners. So what Elvis said was not wrong. From the perspective of males in the beast world, Gu Mingming's father was definitely a scumbag. He should be spurned by the world, torn apart by wild beasts and killed in the cruelest way possible. Chapter 1709. We can stop torturing them and let them die a quick death. Elvis's face darkened. It was obvious that he was very against this decision. But if torturing these people would make Xiaomeng depressed, then he would rather let himself feel aggrieved. Gu Mengmeng looked up at Elvis without saying a word. They all understood her, so how could she not understand them? Snake had her shared memories. Snake probably remembered even more clearly what she had gone through when she was young than she did. And whatever Snake remembered, he must have already told the other 3 males in the family. That was why they hated that man to this extent. She was the treasure in their palms, the flesh in their hearts. Gu Mengmeng was even more precious than their own eyeballs. Just a frown from her could make the 4 men extremely nervous, not to mention those nights where she hugged her knees and cried bitterly in a corner. Those unexplainable grievances and the torment of having to force herself to grow up just to make a living. She was afraid that every single tear she shed had taken root in their hearts, becoming thorns, piercing them with endless pain, engraved in their bones and hearts. That was why they could not forgive that man. That was why Leo would say, this was his revenge, his hatred, he could not let it go. Seeing that Gu Mengmeng did not speak for a long time, Elvis thought that she was not satisfied. Although he was not willing, as long as she could smile again, there was nothing he could not give in to. If you want to let them go, no. Gu Mengmeng shook her head. Then, she swept her gaze across the faces of the 4 males in her family. Finally, her gaze landed on Li's face. She said, let that girl who was skinned by you breathe her last. She did not do anything wrong and should not be punished because of her parents' actions. So, let it end and let her die a quick death. All right. Leo would not reject Gu Mengmeng at such a time. Even though to him, that girl was not innocent. After all, she was the one who took everything that belonged to Gu Mengmeng. What's more, peeling off her skin wasn't to punish her, but to torture her parents who had witnessed the whole process. However, since Gu Mengmeng had spoken, he would be merciful and let her die a quick death. Gu Mengmeng continued, as for that man and Wang Suyun, you guys can do whatever you want, I won't ask and I don't want to see them again. But you have to promise me that you will not hide anything from me in the future. The 4 men nodded seriously and made the most solemn promise. Gu Mengmeng wanted to sweep the matter under the rug and pretend that it had never happened. However, humans might choose to abandon themselves to despair and wait for death under absolute pressure, but if they discovered a gap under this high pressure, they would spare no effort to struggle to the death. A person's desire to live was a terrifying thing. It was enough for one to pass through the heavy defenses and obstacles in a place like the fiery flames to once again stand in front of Gu Mengmeng. Perhaps because he had some expectations, the man was not as dispirited and listless as he was when they first met, even though he was as skinny as a withered corpse. Instead, his eyes were shining brightly, and when he looked at Gu Mengmeng, his gaze was no different from that of a wild beast. Chapter 1710. Meng Meng. The man's voice was hoarse and sounded like he was being torn apart. Even though he was purposely trying to appear kind and amiable, his expression and body language revealed too much of his motive. Gu Meng Meng was born with a childlike face, and even though she was thousands of years old, she still had the demeanor of a young girl. This was of course due to the 4 men in her family spoiling her like a princess. Her mentality would naturally affect her looks and figure. So, this scene now gave off the feeling of a human trafficker trying to abduct an ignorant young girl. Gu Meng Meng took half a step back to avoid the man's outstretched hand. Then, she said coldly, "This title has already been monopolized by Leah. If you call me that, he will not be happy." The man visibly shivered at the mention of Leah. He must be afraid of being punished by Leah. Just the mention of his name was enough to make him tremble in fear. Gu Meng Meng's obvious rejection made him not dare to advance. After all, he was here to beg for mercy. If he angered her, she just needed to shout loudly and many people would be attracted. By then, he would not be able to escape even if he had wings. "Daughter, my good daughter." The man stood at his original spot with his hands crossed on his abdomen. He put on a fake fatherly face and looked at Gu Meng Meng saying, "Fei Fei is dead. I only have you as my daughter now. You are the only bloodline of the Gu family. You are my only kin. Daddy knows that Daddy lost money to you and your mother. Daddy is willing to compensate you. As long as you are willing to give Daddy a chance, Daddy is willing to personally kill that slut who seduced me to avenge you and your mother, all right?" Gu Meng Meng narrowed her eyes with a look of disgust. It was true that she hated Wang Suyun. She was the slut who interfered with her family. But if the man could resist the temptation, how would the slut have any room to act? In the end, it was just one slut and the other an unscrupulous scum. That was why they hit it off so easily, wasn't it? Back then, didn't you swear to me confidently that she was your true love, a woman you would protect for the rest of your life? Now, how did you become a slut? Gu Meng Meng gently rubbed her earlobe. Her movement was slow and gentle, as if it was just a habitual action of a young girl. "I was possessed for a moment, that's why I did what I did and said what I did. Look, I've already paid the price. I've already been tortured by your boyfriend for a few months. No matter how angry you are, it's time for you to cool down. After all, we are father and daughter, and my blood flows in your body." "Ah." Gu Meng Meng laughed coldly and sat down without looking back. Leah, who had unknowingly appeared behind her, caught her in his arms and used his body to protect her completely. He looked at the man in front of him with a cold smile. One had to admit that he was quite capable. After the previous incident, he had already ordered the guards to be more vigilant, but he still managed to strangle the other guard to death with a metal chain when one of them was in the toilet, before running out to face Gu Meng Meng. However, since Meng Meng had something to say, he would wait for her to finish first. Chapter 1711. In order to force my mother to divorce you and make room for Wang Siyun, you smashed the wine bottle at my mother's head right in front of me. Why didn't you consider that we are father and daughter and that your blood flows in my body? When you hit my mother and I from the 7th floor to the 1st floor, why didn't you consider that we are father and daughter and that your blood flows in my body? 4 years old, I was only 4 when you divorced my mother. But you put all the blame on me, just because I am not a son. My mother raised me by her side for so many years. My adoptive father's family was dissatisfied with my presence and made things difficult for my mother. What about you? You're not even willing to give me $500 a month for child support. When I'm being called a little beggar at my adoptive father's house every day, why don't you think about the fact that we're father and daughter and that your blood flows in my body? My adoptive father refused to pay me and I shamelessly went to beg you. Do you know how much courage I needed to muster to knock on your door? But what about you? You allowed Wang Suyun to scold me and hit me. You even blamed me for being impolite to your wife and for not calling her mother, so I deserve to be hit? At that time, why didn't you consider that we are father and daughter and that your blood flows in my body? Oh, now you have a request for me and are counting on me to save your life. You remembered that we are father and daughter and that your blood flows in my body. Wang Suyun is old and her charm is gone. She is no longer valuable to you. Is she not your wife, your true love? Hi, your father and daughter is too cheap. I don't care for it. So put away your disfiguring acting skills. It's so bad that it makes me want to puke. Ever since Leah appeared, the man's entire body had been tense. He was afraid of Leah, afraid to the core. Even though Leah had not done anything or said a single word since he appeared and was just quietly and obediently playing with Gu Mingming's hair, he was still trembling and fear was written all over his face. No matter what, I am your father. This you can't deny. The man's voice was trembling as he kept his guard up against Leah. But from time to time, he would glance at Gu Mingming, as if observing her reaction. Father! Gu Mingming lowered her eyes as if she was savoring these two words. After a long while, she slowly raised her eyes and looked at the man in front of her. She smiled faintly and said, "We are father and daughter after all, but you have never accompanied me to the zoo even once. How about this? You accompany me to the zoo to make up for the regret in my life? Then, I will free you from Li's hands. How about that?" Really? The man's eyes lit up as he stared at Gu Mingming without blinking. Gu Mingming nodded with a smile. "I never lie." The moment he said that, Leah couldn't help but laugh out loud. Never lie? Who was the one who had fooled everyone in the beast world? Not to mention, why did her 3 famous males all call her Little Liar? Didn't she have any idea in her heart? But Leah would never expose her in front of outsiders. Even if it was an outsider, it wouldn't be long before he became a dead man. Chapter 1712. The information revealed in Gu Mingming's words was enough for every male to know what she was planning. So everyone smiled at the same time. Elvis took Gu Mingming from Li's hands and carried her in his arms as if he was carrying a child. Leah put on rubber gloves and pinched the man's shoulder. He smiled gently and warmly. "Let's go, father-in-law." Somehow, the more warm and gentle Leah was, the more afraid the man was. He felt that Gu Mingming's change was too sudden and these 4 devil-like men agreed too easily. This was the situation he wanted the most, but he just had to feel a strange sense of uneasiness. Leah moved closer to the man and whispered softly, "Gu Mingming is the apple of our eyes. If she is happy, we will be happy. So, father-in-law, you must make our Gu Mingming obedient. If not, if she is unhappy, you will have to go back to the dungeon again." The man shrank his neck when he heard the word dungeon. He nodded hurriedly and stole glances at Gu Mingming. The cunning look in his eyes became even brighter. He could not go back to the dungeon. After he was caught the last time he escaped, he was locked in an electrically connected dog cage by Leah and was not given any food or water for 3 days. He could not even stretch his legs or he would be electrocuted. Up until now, there were still many burns on his skin that were still inflamed by the electricity. If he was caught again, he would be in an even worse state. So, he must hold his precious daughter, Gu Mingming, tightly in his hands. As long as he held on to her, the Prince of F Country, the leader of fiery flames, would have to address him as father-in-law, just like this pervert Leah. By then, everything he had suffered today would be returned to them in double. So much so that he could step on the royal family of F Country and fiery flames to stand at the top of the world. Call the wind and summon the rain, cover the sky with one hand. From then on, no one would dare to say that he, Gu Jigeng, was a useless person. As he thought about it, he laughed sinisterly. His uncontrollable excitement made a gurgling sound come from his throat. It sounded rather terrifying. The so-called zoo was definitely not a normal zoo for tourists, but Li's idea. Snake had used the name of the royal family to enclose the land, while Elvis had used the power of the fiery flames to smuggle back all kinds of wild beasts, creating a miniature biological chain. The 4 men of the Gu family were the most familiar with the habits of wild beasts, so they created an environment that was the best for training wild beasts to regain their wild nature. Although it had only been a few months, the wild beasts raised here were far more ferocious than the so-called wild beasts in the zoo. Although it was still not as ferocious as the wild beasts in the beast world, it was already considered a better imitation of the beast world. Walking in this garden, Gu Mingming felt a sense of trance. as if she had returned to the beast world and was bringing her family out to hunt. And this feeling of hers was exactly what the 4 men of the Gu family were pursuing. After all, she had personally said that she wanted to return to the beast world. Since they could not create a door of time and space for her, they could just create a microscopic beast world for her. You guys go away for a while, I have something to say to him alone. Gu Mingming chose the center of the garden and suddenly spoke. Chapter 1713. The 4 men were the most at ease in the forest. In just 2 breaths' time, the 4 of them disappeared into thin air. Gu Mingming then turned around and looked at the man, asking, "If you knew this day would come, would you still choose to abandon mother and me for Wang Suyun?" The man shook his head decisively. "No, my precious daughter, you are daddy's most beloved child. If not for Wang Suyun, that slut, forcing me with her pregnancy, why would I abandon you guys? Actually, I have long regretted it all these years, but your mother has her own family now. I have already hurt her once, how could I bear to disturb her again? As for you? Sigh, Daddy is too ashamed to see you, that's why I don't dare to visit you. You don't even know, every year on your birthday, Daddy will buy your favorite strawberry-flavored birthday cake, insert the numbered candles that represent your age, and then sing a birthday song to the cake alone. Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to Mengmeng, happy birthday to you. When is my birthday?" Gu Mengmeng did not wait for the man to finish singing, directly interrupting him. The man was suddenly stunned, as if he did not expect Gu Mengmeng to suddenly ask such a question. His brain twitched, he really wanted to give himself a tight slap. He could have used any method to clear his name? Why did he have to mention birthday? There were 365 days in a year, that was a 1 in 365 chance, how could he guess? If he guessed wrongly, mistake. Gu Mengmeng smiled coldly, then shook her head slowly, saying, "You don't even remember my birthday, and you don't care about me at all, right? How could that be?" The man looked a little awkward, but he quickly covered it up with his fatherly facade, swearing solemnly, "Even a vicious tiger will not eat its cubs. No matter how heartless I am, you are still my daughter. How could I not feel heartache for you, not miss you? But daughter, you must understand that a father's love is like a mountain. The love that daddy gives you is grand and deep, naturally not as gentle and delicate as your mother, who will always remember different days. Daddy's love is to stand in front of you and protect you at all times, understand?" Gu Mengmeng nodded, as if she deeply agreed. The man then heaved a sigh of relief, feeling that his words of a loving father teaching his daughter were too well said. A textbook example of a loving father. Gu Mengmeng looked up and smiled at the man, calling out, "Daddy." The man was so excited that he almost cried on the spot. Gu Mengmeng had acknowledged him. What did this mean? This meant that the Prince of F Country and the boss of Fiery Flame would have to call him father-in-law from now on. It meant that he would become the most honorable person in the world. From now on, he could do whatever he wanted and squander money however he wanted. If anyone made him unhappy, he would have his sons-in-law kill them. However, before he could complete half of his dream, Gu Mengmeng continued, "It's time for you to display your fatherly love." What? The man was still in a daze until Gu Mengmeng pointed to the side with her chin. Only then did the man realize that they had been surrounded by a pack of wolves. Many wolves lowered their bodies and bared their teeth as they stared at Feng and the others, as if they were ready to attack at any time. Chapter 1714. Gu Mengmeng sat in the middle of the wolf pack, cross-legged as she watched the man running away in panic. She smiled and her gaze was calm. She did not feel disappointed at all. It was as if the test she gave him was unnecessary. He had never let her down when it came to abandoning her. She had given him a chance. Even if he felt a little guilty towards her, even if she did not expect him to sacrifice himself to buy time for Gu Mengmeng to escape, as long as he could pull her along when he ran, or even shout at her, "Gu Mengmeng, run," she would have a reason to let him off. However, he did not pull her along, nor did he shout at her to run together. He did not even turn back to look at her. Moreover, he even pushed her directly into the pack of wolves. His fatherly love was like a mountain. Was it like the Golden Chicken Mountain? Gu Mengmeng just sat on the ground with the wolf pack surrounding her. There was not a single trace of the fierceness in her eyes. She was as obedient as a dog. Elvis walked out from behind the tree and carried Gu Mengmeng into his arms. He whispered into her ear, "The ground is cold, let me carry you." Gu Mengmeng did not object and just let Elvis carry her obediently. Then, Snake leaned half his body down from a tree in his half-beast state. His snake tail wrapped around his arm and his body hung in midair. He said, "Tuming, are you sure you want to see it with your own eyes?" Gu Mengmeng did not look up at Snake. She just stared at the man who was being dragged back like a corpse by the snake not far away. A snake as thick as a thigh used its tail to wrap around the man's arm and dragged him towards Gu Mengmeng. It only stopped when it was a step away from Gu Mengmeng. It spat blood at Snake, as if it was reporting its mission. Snake nodded. That snake then released its tail and slithered towards a tree at the side. It hid in the treetops to spy on the man just now. The arm that was wrapped around by the snake had already turned into mud. Bits and pieces of broken bones poked out from the flesh. That arm was the one he used to push Gu Mengmeng. I used just the right amount of poison so that he could clearly see how he died, but he could not even struggle. Snake's smile was so cold that it made one's blood run cold. Gu Jigang's eyes widened. He wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Everything in front of her was too strange. A pack of wild wolves surrounded Gu Mengmeng like domesticated dogs, and a half-human, half-snake monster was hanging from a tree. He tried to open his mouth but no sound came out. His entire body was numb and just like what Snake said, his mind was clear but he had no control over his own body. Unbeknownst to him, many small snakes as thick as a thumb had surrounded him. His open mouth had become a playground for the small snakes to explore. One by one, the snakes drilled into his body through his mouth. It was too late for him to shut his mouth. With his own eyes, he saw the colorful little snakes burrow into his mouth. He could clearly feel them moving along his esophagus. He even saw his stomach rise and fall like a wave. Then, a small red head burrowed out of his belly button. The smell of blood stimulated the pack of wolves, and they let out low growls, as if they were enduring the desire for blood in their bodies. After all, with the Wolf King around, how would they dare to be impudent? Go! Digression, Golden Chicken Mountain. It was said that after a person dies, they have to walk the road to hell. The fifth stop on the road is the Golden Chicken Mountain. Chapter 17:15. The one who gave the order was not Elvis, but Gu Mengmeng. She patted the head of one of the wolves lightly before leaning into Elvis's arms. Expressionlessly, she watched as the pack of wolves pounced towards her biological father. She knew that he could still hear her words, so she slowly opened her mouth and said without any emotions, "You gave me a sperm and gave me a life. Because of you, I had the chance to meet them, so I should be grateful to you. But you ruthlessly and heartlessly trampled on this gratitude. You abandoned your daughter in the name of true love and did not bear any responsibility as a father. Now, you personally overthrew your so-called true love, just because I, the daughter you abandoned, suddenly have the power to decide your life and death. You don't love my mom, you don't love me, and you don't love Wang Suyun. You only love yourself. It is not a sin if you don't look out for yourself and the heavens destroy you. But the way you love yourself, you hurt others without the slightest bit of remorse. Until just now, I was still giving you a chance. Even if you still have a shred of conscience, even if you still have some blood ties, even if you don't call for me when you escape, at least don't push me, or, if you plead for Wang Suyun along the way and not push all the blame to her, let me see a little bit of the relationship between husband and wife, then I can believe the 2 words true love I said that year and spare your lives. Unfortunately, in the end, you only love yourself. In front of yourself, everything else can be sacrificed. My mother is like that, I am like that, Wang Suyun and your daughter are also like that. As Gu Mengmeng said, she suddenly laughed. Looking at Gu Jigang, whose intestines had been pierced, she hid half of her face in the shadows like a ghost in the dark night. Her voice was cold and coupled with the rustling of the leaves in the wind, It sounded like the singing of a wandering soul from hell. Bloodline is a magical thing. That sperm of yours has established a part of my personality that's really like you. Such as selfishness, such as heartless. You could turn a blind eye to the torture I endured when I was young, so I could watch you being eaten by wild beasts with my own eyes and not do anything. If you can push me to the wolves to escape, then I can personally order the wolves to eat you up. I won't leave a dangerous factor in this world who can attack me from behind at any time. If you hate me, remember to turn into a malicious spirit and come back to take revenge on me. Only then will I have the chance to beat you to the point that your soul will fly away and scatter, never to be reborn again. By the time Gu Mengmeng finished her last word, Gu Jigang's throat had already been bitten off by the wild wolves. His entire body had already been devoured clean, leaving only a pool of dirty blood stains and a hideous face with eyes wide open. Snake threw a glance over, and the snake that had been coiled up on the tree after capturing Gu Jigang slowly slithered down. After hissing and sticking out its tongue, it swallowed the head in one gulp. At this point, Gu Jigang had been completely devoured by the pack of wolves and snakes. This person no longer existed in this world. Even his corpse could not be put back together. Gu Mengmeng exhaled heavily through her nose, then lowered her eyes to calm her emotions. Elvis did not say much and just carried Gu Mengmeng out of the forest. There was no other reason other than that Xiao Meng was afraid of seeing blood. Chapter 1716. Elvis hesitated for a moment before replying, "They went to deal with Wang Suyun." Gu Mengmeng did not ask further about how they would deal with Wang Suyun. Because to her, Wang Suyun's identity was much purer than Gu Jigang's. They were purely enemies. Gu Mengmeng would not blame Wang Suyun for Gu Jigang's affair and abandoning his wife and daughter. Because if this man had a sense of responsibility, he would not have given Wang Suyun such a chance. If he had even a little conscience, he would not have been so cruel to her and her mother. Gu Mengmeng had always felt that the man was the main culprit in this affair. After all, if a cow does not drink water, no one can force it. A fly would not bite an egg without a crack. That was probably the logic. Gu Jigang was a man who would not stay by his wife's side for the rest of his life. So even if there was no Wang Suyun, there would be Li Suyun and Zhang Suyun. But this did not mean that Wang Suyun was not at fault for intervening in someone else's marriage and destroying someone else's family, even if there was no Wang Suyun. Gu Mengmeng did not want to criticize all the mistresses in the world on behalf of justice. She only represented herself and hated Wang Suyun for intervening in her life and destroying her family. Even with the passage of time, when she saw Wang Suyun's face, she would still remember how Wang Suyun came home with a pregnant belly and forced her mother to divorce under the guise of true love. She also did not forget how she instigated her father and mother to fight for custody of the house her parents bought when they got married. She used the reason that the father's family structure was more complete and more suitable for the child to grow up. How ironic. His affair became his advantage in front of the law. She snatched her mother's man as she wished, lived in her mother's house and hit her mother's child. Gu Mengmeng would not forget the days when she was locked in the hammock and not allowed to come down. Even when she went to the toilet, she had to be careful not to be discovered by her. Otherwise, the phrase, "I'll hit you every time I see you," would come true. Gu Mengmeng would also not forget Wang Suyun's hateful and vicious expression every time Wang Suyun and Gu Jigang argued with each other. She would never forget the slap she had given her on the street, as well as the powerful words she had said, "You're not my child, so why should you spend my man's money? Don't be like your shameless mother, trying to use your child to pester a man after getting divorced. He's not my son." After 1,000 years of training in the beast world, Gu Mengmeng understood one principle: sometimes, kindness was not a virtue. Repaying evil with good, how to repay good. Now, Gu Mengmeng believed in karma and the cycle of karma. As such, she did not ask Leah and Gregory how they would deal with Wang Suyun. Because no matter how Leah and Grace dealt with it, it was her retribution for being a mistress. Not every mistress who wrecked someone else's family would receive such retribution. Wang Suyun could only blame her bad luck. The person she had offended was Gu Mengmeng. And by Gu Mengmeng's side, There were 4 males who could not bear to see her suffer even the slightest grievance and would definitely seek revenge for anything that happened to her. After that day, no one mentioned anything about Gu Jigang and Wang Suyun. Chapter 1717. The 4 males in the family were worried that Gu Mengmeng would be depressed because of this matter. Although she said she did not mind, she still gave Gu Jigang a quick death. Yes, being eaten by wild beasts was already a relatively easy way to die. After all, with Li's methods, Gu Jigang would probably live to 100 years old and die without a way out. But after a few days, Gu Mengmeng ate and drank as she liked without being affected, so the 4 males in the family gradually relaxed. Snake had always been very busy, especially after Elvis took over the fiery flames. He was no longer the family's only source of income, and even his position as the main source of income was in danger. This made him feel a sense of crisis, so he became more concerned about the family's matters, and became busier and busier. And Elvis, as the first partner in the family, wanted to maintain his position in the family, so he definitely could not let Snake keep suppressing him. In addition to the knot in his heart from 1,000 years ago, he desperately wanted to win Snake for once. So, the first partner and the partner with the mark on his heart fell into a strange competitive atmosphere. Neither of them tried to trip each other up, and even cooperated with each other. After all, the money they earned would eventually go into Gu Mengmeng's pocket. Only a fool would sacrifice his own family's benefits to compete. But while they cooperated with each other, they were also secretly competing with each other. The battle between their claws and fangs was also very intense. Gu Mengmeng did not stop them from fighting. It was normal for males to be competitive. Elvis had his responsibility and dignity as the first partner, while Snake also had his pride and backbone as a king. If Gu Mengmeng interfered, it would not be a good thing for either of them. Even the one who was favored would not feel happy. Because, did you think I could not win him, so you asked him to give in to me? The brains of the males in their family had always been abnormal. To them, the most effective way for her to love them was to keep making things difficult for them and to be pretentious. Being sensible, trying to keep the peace, and making compromises in their eyes, it meant that she didn't love them anymore. Her heart was tired, but she did not want to say it. Gregory had also been acting mysteriously recently. She did not know what he was busy with, but he would always greet Gu Mengmeng before disappearing for the entire day. Gu Mengmeng felt that it was strange, but she did not probe further. After all, although Gregory was her guardian beast, he was not her man in the truest sense, so he had the right to choose again. After all, this was the modern world, and modern women wouldn't reject you just because you liked someone else. Although Gu Mengmeng felt a little awkward, she did not force him. Gregory was very good, really very good. He was so good that if he wanted to abandon her to find a complete relationship, she had no right to say anything. What happened? Leah swayed his large tail and lifted Gu Mengmeng's little chin with his slender fingers. He squinted his eyes to look at her lost expression and asked softly, "Are you hinting at something by showing such a lonely look in front of me?" Chapter 1718. But Leah did not mind. He swayed his large tail and smiled flirtatiously. His long and affectionate eyes stared into Gu Mengmeng's without any restraint. His love was deep as he opened his red lips and said softly, "I am also your partner. It is my responsibility and obligation to soothe your loneliness. Don't tell me I can't warm you up just because they neglected you." The words "neglected you" made Gu Mengmeng's scalp go numb. She dared to guarantee that if Elvis and Snake heard these 2 words, they could instantly change the battlefield from F country to her bed. Thinking about how they were competing to see who could earn more money, if it was changed to who could make her unable to get out of bed for the longest time, Gu Mengmeng shuddered in disgust. She immediately smiled at Leah and said, "My good hubby, please don't say that. I have you by my side, how can I be lonely?" Leah raised his brows and looked at Gu Mengmeng, who was deliberately trying to please him. He pursed his lips and gave a profound smile. He asked with a look as if he had gotten the upper hand, "Really?" Gu Mengmeng was really helpless. They had been together for 1,000 years. How could she not understand the obvious come and praise me look on Li's face? Holding onto Li's arm, Gu Mengmeng hung her whole body in his arms. She looked up and smiled, saying sweetly, "Of course, my hubby is extremely handsome and is the best-looking male in the world. I don't even have time to look at you. How would you have the time to be lonely?" Leah pinched Gu Mengmeng's chin and kissed her lightly on the lips. "I don't want to compare myself to all the males in the world. Just tell me, am I the most good-looking in our family?" Leah smiled. Gu Mengmeng felt that there was an infinitely large pit in front of her. If she jumped into it, Elvis and Snake would torture her to death. If she did not jump, Leah could torture her to death without waiting for them to return. Rolling her eyes, Gu Mengmeng straightened her neck and said, "No, I am the best looking in our family." She sounded really guilty when she said that. Perhaps when compared to the females in the beast world, Gu Mengmeng could be considered a heavenly beauty. But in the present world, Gu Mengmeng was at most above average. This was the temperament and aura that she had accumulated over 1,000 years, as well as the absolute love and nourishment from the 4 men at home. When she first transmigrated, she could only be considered below average in the modern world. As for the males in the beast world, any one of them could kill off a bunch of popular fresh meats in seconds, and the 4 in her family were the cream of the crop. Elvis's fortitude, Li's seductiveness, Snake's cold arrogance, Gregory's abstinence, they were all at the peak of perfection. Just their faces alone could make people kneel and lick them for a lifetime. If it weren't for the fact that the 4 of them obviously pampered and doted on her, when she stood beside the 4 of them, she would be like a little assistant next to a big star, completely inconspicuous. But now, he had to say that he was the best-looking one in the family. How could he not feel guilty? How unconscionable. Leah, on the other hand, deeply agreed with Gu Mengmeng's words. He nodded his head and agreed with utmost sincerity. "That's true, my Xiao Mengmeng is the best-looking person in this world." With Leah praising her with such a serious face, she felt even more guilty. Chapter 1719. Another honeymoon. Gu Mengmeng thought about it. During the previous honeymoon, it was Cole who used a medicinal worm to trick Leah and try to replace him. In the end, when Leah counterattacked, Elvis and Leah cooperated and put on a show to kidnap her away. After that, when she was the messenger of the beast deity, the family of 3 never separated. After that, Snake and Gregory came back and they became a family of 5, almost inseparable. But when they first transmigrated to the modern world, Snake played a small trick and made Elvis and Leah throw her over a week earlier. So to Elvis and Leah, she had a week alone with Snake. Although this week did not exist in her timeline, to Elvis and Leah, it was a solid 7 days of separation from her. After that, Snake was busy with tribe matters and Leah was arranged by Gu Mengmeng to treat Quentin's illness, so she had a few days alone with Elvis. Putting aside Gregory, the guardian beast with an empty name, among the proper partners, only Leah had not been alone with her since they came to the modern world. Her partner was very open-minded and magnanimous when it came to other things, but when it came to her, he would haggle over every little detail. So, when Leah said that, Gu Mengmeng understood that he was feeling aggrieved. Hugging Li's neck and rubbing his face intimately, Gu Mengmeng smiled and replied, "All right, let's go on a honeymoon." Leah was extremely satisfied. He kissed Gu Mengmeng's little face and asked, "Do you have any special place you want to go? If not, can I arrange it for you?" Gu Mengmeng smiled and nodded. Then, she leaned into Li's arms and said gently, "With you by my side, anywhere is good." Li's heart melted because of Gu Mengmeng's words. He hugged her even tighter and breathed lightly into her left ear. Biting her delicate earlobe, he whispered, "Vixen." Gu Mengmeng laughed and fooled around for a while, but allowed Leah to carry her back to the room for an afternoon nap. When she woke up, the other 3 men in the house were already back. But the atmosphere around them did not seem too harmonious. Leah must have taken the initiative to tell them about the honeymoon, so the other 3 were obviously unhappy. Seeing that Gu Mengmeng had already woken up, although Elvis's face darkened, he still took the cup from the bedside out of habit and used his chest to support Gu Mengmeng. Then, he brought the cup to her lips and said in a cold voice that could not hide his concern, "The weather has been dry recently, you have to drink more water." Gu Mengmeng was long used to having a cup of warm honey water delivered to her the moment she opened her eyes, so she naturally did not reject it. She obediently drank the whole cup and smiled sweetly at Elvis, saying, "I want another cup." Elvis smiled sweetly. Yes, this was a form of flattery. As long as she ate and drank more, the males in her house would be as excited as if they had been stepped on. Indeed, the words "one more cup" successfully broke Elvis's black face. His lips were the first to betray him, and he could not help but curl up. Following that, his blue eyes changed from the color of the cold night to the depth of the deep sea. It only took him a few breaths' time. First mate done. Chapter 1720. Gu Mengmeng rested her head on Snake's chest and took the cup of honey water from Elvis. As she drank, she said, "Bai Lan said she is going to hold her wedding with Zhang Jinqing next month, so we have to make a trip back to S City. Do you have time?" Snake raised his eyebrows and gave a low laugh. Back to S City. In front of Bai Lan and Zhang Jinqing, he was Gu Mengmeng's legitimate fiancé. Although he was the prince of F country, S City was his true home ground in Gu Mengmeng's territory. "I will always be available whenever you need me." He lowered his head and kissed Gu Mengmeng's cheek. The person who was so cold that he could freeze the air into ice was now like the spring breeze in March. Although he was a little cold, there was a unique gentleness to him. Second partner, settled. Taking a deep breath, Gu Mengmeng looked up at Gregory. He had not been seen these few days. Perhaps he had a new life plan? Suppressing the disappointment in her heart, Gu Mengmeng only smiled at Gregory and did not say anything else. Since she could not give him a complete set, then she would just let the Birdman go. A bird's eyes were the sharpest, and he could clearly see that Gu Mengmeng was pacifying her first and second partners. Of course, Elvis and Snake knew it too. But they were willing to fall for her little tricks and were just willing to be pacified by her. Gregory was still anticipating that Gu Mengmeng would say something to him, but she only smiled and did not say a single word. By right, after his return, although Gu Mengmeng was not as close to him as her other partners, she had never been so distant. Could it be, what did he do wrong that he did not know? Furrowing his brows imperceptibly, Gregory began to reflect on himself, but he could not come up with an answer no matter how hard he tried. Gu Mengmeng did not want herself to pay too much attention to Gregory, so she purposely did not look at him anymore. She just snuggled back into Elvis's arms, still holding a big cup of honey water in her hand and sipping it slowly. When she had drunk about half a cup, she then said, "You guys are all busy recently. Leah and I have nothing to do and plan to go out for a walk." "I'm not busy." Elvis suppressed his voice and said softly. Gu Mengmeng chuckled and did not reply. She looked at Snake. Snake glanced at Leah coldly and said, "I am busy, but no matter how busy I am, I still have time to accompany you." She knew it would be like this. He looked at Leah helplessly and smiled. "Then let's go together. I am the happiest when all of you are accompanying me." Leah swayed his large tail and said pretentiously, "Xiao Mengmeng, you're going back on your word again, huh?" Gu Mengmeng shrugged and chuckled. "Anyway, you guys always call me little liar, don't you? Forget it. As long as you don't lie to me about that, I won't blame you for anything else." Leah smiled magnanimously, then kissed Gu Mengmeng on the cheek. "I knew we couldn't shake them off, so this honeymoon plan was to travel as a whole family." With that, Leah turned to look at Snake and asked, "Your Highness, how is the relationship between F country and H country? Is your title as a prince useful in H country?" Snake laughed softly. His lips curled into a proud smile. "I don't know if my title as a prince is useful, but US dollars are definitely useful. Isn't that enough?" Chapter 1721. Elvis and Snake did not care much about money. Anyway, it was spent on Mengmeng in the end, so it was good. As for whose hands it was spent on, what did it matter? Anyway, with the two of them, one black and one white, the family would not be short of money. So, Elvis and Snake each gave Leah a black card and said in unison, "The password is birthday." It was obvious whose birthday it was. Leah did not hesitate to accept it. Even though he was rich and had quite a lot of money, who would complain about money biting their hands? Right? Gregory did not say a word from the side. It was just that he did not feel very comfortable and awkward. Although he did not have a strong presence, it was the first time Gu Mengmeng ignored him like this. In the past, although he was the last one and he never objected to any of her decisions, Gu Mengmeng would still ask him even if it was just a symbolic gesture. But this time, she did not even look at him with a questioning gaze. So, she did not intend to bring him along on this honeymoon, right? His heart suddenly felt empty. That feeling of not being able to go up and down made him feel helpless and lost. If he was not by her side, then where should he go? Baby Meng. Gregory could not help but call out softly. Gu Mengmeng looked up and smiled brightly at Gregory, saying, "It's all right, if you have other matters to attend to and cannot come with us, you can go ahead and busy yourself. I'm fine." Gregory had not thought of what to say, so he subconsciously called out her name. Hearing her say that, he could not form a complete sentence out of his messy words. He could only nod his head with difficulty and force out a word, "All right." A journey that could be set off at will, with the support of a strong foundation of money, proceeded exceptionally smoothly. Snake threw the matters of the family to his so-called father, and Elvis handed the matters of the fiery flames to Barit. After the family of 3 boarded the private plane, Gu Mengmeng then asked, "Why are we going to H country? You are not familiar with that place." Leah smiled mysteriously, swaying his tail as he leaned against the chair lazily. His long and affectionate eyes scanned across Gu Mengmeng's face with a hint of deep ambiguity. He said, "You will know when you get there." Gu Mengmeng shrugged and did not probe further. Actually, ever since she had a cold war with Elvis and Leah in the stray beast camp, the men in the family no longer dared to hide anything from her. She hadn't experienced this kind of "you'll know when you get there" deliberately mystifying for almost 1,000 years. But Leah would never hurt her. He thought that it was probably some kind of strange surprise. Gu Mengmeng did not probe further. It was a 10-hour flight, and because it was a private plane, it was spacious. Moreover, there were entertainment items prepared for her by her man on the plane. Furthermore, Elvis, Leah and Snake were all by her side, so it was not difficult to kill time. It was just that when they alighted from the plane, the sky was already dark, so Gu Mengmeng leaned on Elvis's shoulder and said, "Yeah, let's go to the accommodation and rest for a while." Leah, tomorrow, Gu Mengmeng had wanted to ask Leah what plans he had for tomorrow, but before she could finish her words, she felt a tightness around her waist and was flung out by something. Chapter 1722. After a moment of dizziness, before Gu Mengmeng could see anything clearly, a handkerchief covered her mouth and nose. Gu Mengmeng instinctively wanted to hold her breath, but the action of covering her mouth was so perfunctory that it was released in less than 2 seconds. So, just going through the procedure? Then shouldn't she play along and pretend to faint? Gu Mengmeng was in a daze. A black headgear covered her and her arms were tied behind her back, but it was not a thick hemp rope or leather belt that tied her up. This touched a scarf? And it was made of good quality that would not strangle people. Were kidnappers so humane nowadays and so considerate towards their hostages? Gu Mengmeng was shoved twice symbolically and pushed into a car. Then, there was an extremely exaggerated jolt. Feeling sleepy for some unknown reason, Gu Mengmeng slowly fell asleep in the jolt. The second before she fell asleep, she was still thinking that the handkerchief covering her mouth and nose did not have the smell of knockout drugs, and that she had held her breath? But why did she still fall for it? When she woke up in a daze, Gu Mengmeng was even more confused. She was tied to a folding chair, surrounded by dilapidated buildings, and a European stood in front of her. He looked a little familiar, but after thinking for a long time, Gu Mengmeng could not remember who he was. She just instinctively felt that he was not someone from the beast world, but a European from the modern era. Her first reaction was that he was Harold's subordinate, but he did not make a move in F country and only made a move in H country. Seeing that Gu Mengmeng had woken up, The man laughed exaggeratedly. Then, he picked up a pistol from the table and used the gun handle to smash Gu Mingming's head. However, he did not touch Gu Mingming and just brushed past her face. Gu Mingming looked at the man in a daze, not understanding why he was bluffing to scare her. The man did not explain. He pinched Gu Mingming's chin and turned her face to the side. Then he used the gun handle to mess up Gu Mingming's hair, as if he had just hit her with the gun handle. Gu Mingming turned her head back to look at the man again. She did not say anything, but her face was filled with crazy. "Can you speak English?" The man spoke in an authentic English accent. Before Gu Mingming could reply, he continued, "I hope you don't think that I'm a good person, especially when I'm holding a gun." Gu Mingming was speechless. Why did she feel that this person in front of her was even more abnormal than the males in the beast world? Under Gu Mingming's gaze, the man spoke in English like a drama queen. Gu Mingming had transmigrated when she was in her first year of university. Strictly speaking, her English level was only at high school level, and the last time she used English was about 1,000 years ago, so Gu Mingming did not understand many of the words men said. But she heard him mention words like Leah, smart, mysterious, disappeared, dangerous, and secret intermittently. Then, a few foreigners entered the house with computers, speaking fluent English that Gu Mingming could barely understand. The man who held the gun and pretended to shoot Gu Mingming smiled. Then, a series of gunshots came from outside the house. The man raised his eyebrows and pulled Gu Mingming up from the chair. He pointed the gun at her and walked out. In the narrow and dim corridor, Gu Mingming saw Leah dressed in a special forces uniform. Chapter 1723. If Gu Mingming did not understand what was going on at the start, she understood everything the moment she saw Leah. That foreigner who looked familiar but she could not recall, she instantly remembered who he was. No wonder Leah wanted to come to H country, so this was his intention. Gu Mingming knew she should cooperate and act pitiful with reddened eyes, but seeing her man go through so much trouble, her heart was filled with sweetness and she could not suppress the corners of her lips. Gregory, who was supposed to be in F country, walked out from the corner wearing the same black Special Forces mission uniform. He stood beside Leah and said, "We can use the remote control to control the bomb vest, but we need to stall for some time." Then, the man asked Gu Mingming in English, what were they talking about? Gu Mingming smiled and replied in broken English, "We were talking about the weather, saying that today is a good day." The man indeed pointed the gun at Gu Mingming's head and spouted a long line of threatening words. Leah took out his gun and pulled the trigger. Then, the man's gun dropped to the ground and he roared at Leah, "Are you crazy?" Leah tilted his head and chuckled, looking extremely alluring. He said in perfect English, "Maybe. You can think that way, so don't touch her, don't scare her and don't talk to her. Your opponent is me, only me." Gu Mingming felt her face hurting. As someone who had gone through 9 years of compulsory education, her English was not as good as Leah, who had only come to the modern world for a few months. Did the people in the beast world all have language cheats? How many languages were Leah and the rest proficient in now? Gu Mingming, "I'm sorry I'm late." Lee's expression was a little serious. He said, "Stand there and don't move. Trust me, understand?" Gu Mingming nodded and stood at the same spot, smiling at Leah. Gunshots rang out one after another and the surroundings were in chaos. Gu Mingming was pulled by an external force and fell into a familiar embrace. Leah hugged her tightly, completely ignoring the rain of bullets around him. He only whispered into her ear, "Gu Ming, look at me." Gu Mingming looked up at his voice and looked at Leah, who was cosplaying with full concentration and love. She smiled gently. "I will protect you and stand by your side forever. I won't let you get hurt. Trust me, him?" Gu Mingming nodded and replied. Gregory removed the bomb vest that the foreign man had put on Gu Mingming. Then he walked to the window and threw it out. At the same time, Leah pulled Gu Mingming into his arms and looked out of the window. With a loud bang, large and resplendent fireworks exploded outside the window. Leah whispered into Gu Mingming's ear, "Although the theme is love in the midst of war, it's still too dangerous to make an explosion in front of you, so I changed the explosion into fireworks. Do you like it? Gu Mengmeng could not suppress her smile, but straightened her neck and said, plagiarizing Descendants of the Sun, but not finding the real Yu Jin for me? Bad review. Leah smiled and kissed Gu Mengmeng's lips as a punishment. Then, he said hoarsely, Yu Jin belongs to Kang Mun. Leia, this is yours. With that, Lee's lips pressed against Gu Mengmeng's again. It was a kiss filled with lingering emotions and endless gentleness. Chapter 1724. Confess. Gu Mengmeng smiled. Leah let go of Gu Mengmeng and took a step back. He knelt down on one knee and raised his handsome face, saying, In my name, I swear to you that from today onwards, you are my God, my life, my everything. Gu Mengmeng, I love you. Marry me, all right? Gu Mengmeng smiled and nodded. She opened her arms and waited for Leah to hug her. Leah stood up and held onto one of Gu Mengmeng's hands. He spun her around and hugged her with her back facing him. He whispered into her ear, You gave your left ring finger to Elvis and your right ring finger to Snakel. My ring can only be like this. As Leah said that, he opened his palm in front of Gu Mengmeng as though he was performing a magic trick. A fox-shaped ring hung on the necklace and fell in front of Gu Mengmeng. It bounced twice and swayed left and right before finally stopping steadily in front of her. Shall I help you put it on? Leah asked gently. Gu Mengmeng nodded. Then she parted her hair and revealed her fair and smooth neck. Leah put the necklace on Gu Mengmeng's neck. That ring landed right in between her collarbone and it reflected the fox on her left ear. It was as if one was on her ear and the other on her collarbone, looking at each other from afar and guarding each other. Now I can finally be at ease. Leah swayed his body gently. Ever since you told Sandy this story, I have been worried that a male called Yu Jin would come and snatch you away. Although I have watched the television series you mentioned after coming to the modern world and know that you did not lie to me, I could not bear to let you have any regrets. So, I used a large sum of money to hire the entire production team from the actors to the costume department. Even the scenes were remade according to that time period, just to replace him as the hero in your heart. Xiao Mengmeng, tell me, did I do it? You don't have to replace anyone. You will always be my hero. Gu Mengmeng leaned into Lee's arms and chuckled. The helicopter rumbled above their heads, creating a deafening sound. A ladder hung down from the helicopter. Leah carried Gu Mengmeng with one hand and grabbed onto the ladder with the other, leaving the dilapidated building. Grace transformed into a bird in a corner that no one noticed. After circling twice, he followed the trajectory of the helicopter and flew away. On the helicopter, Elvis and Snake were wearing the same attire as Leah. They sat on either side of Gu Mengmeng. Leah sat opposite Gu Mengmeng. His gaze swept across the ring on her neck and then her left ear. Then he smiled and said, Xiaoming, look, you are much more fortunate than Kang Mun. You have 4 Yu Jins. Gu Mengmeng smiled and nodded, not saying a word. Leah could not allow her to have any regrets in her life, no matter if it was love or hate. Even after thousands of years, she had already forgotten all the love and hate she had, but he still firmly remembered what had hurt her and what had made her happy before. Just this kind intention alone was hard to obtain even with 1,000 gold pieces. Leah looked out of the window and said, That fool who was unwilling to act pitiful in front of you, because he could not bear to part with you, he chased after the helicopter from F country to here. Now, he is afraid that you do not want to see him, so he did not dare to board the helicopter and still chased after the helicopter back to F country. Xiao Mengmeng really does not intend to care about him? Hearing Lee's words, Gu Mengmeng then regained her senses. Following Lee's line of sight, Grace was indeed chasing after the helicopter in the form of a vulture. Digression, that was the end of Lee's proposal. As usual, I recommend Susu's new article, Warm Thoughts on a Pillow, Don't Stop Taking the CEO's Medication, a 1v1 sweet pampering article. No mistresses, no exes, no misunderstandings. If there are babies who like to read sadistic articles, please pay attention to Susu's completed article, Overbearing Wife. I heard that the wife wants to divorce her husband. Beast World will temporarily end here. The editor said that if the data is good, he will let me continue to publish more. Any more and it will probably be the content of Grace's marriage proposal. Susu will try her best to fight for it with the editor. If my babies like it, please leave a comments. Chapter 1725. They changed their flight route at the last minute and did not fly back to F country directly. Instead, they chose the nearest airport to land temporarily and let Gregory board the plane. He was a little uneasy, as if he was afraid that Gu Mengmeng would be angry. After all, they had been together for so long. Although Gregory did not speak much, Gu Mengmeng still had a basic understanding of him. "Gregory, do you actually have something to say to me?" Gregory was stunned for a moment. He hesitated but still nodded. "What is it?" Gu Mengmeng looked at him quietly, using an encouraging gaze to express her anticipation. Gregory tried to pull Gu Mengmeng's little hand. Seeing that she did not resist, he slowly said, "It will be Chinese Valentine's Day in 3 days' time." Gu Mengmeng suddenly understood something. "So the reason why you kept disappearing mysteriously was to prepare for Chinese Valentine's Day?" Gregory nodded. His eyes were filled with anticipation. He wanted to invite Gu Mengmeng to spend Chinese Valentine's Day with him, but he did not have the right to monopolize her for even a minute. He was just a guardian beast. When Gu Mengmeng needed him, he would fulfill all her requests and was always prepared to sacrifice his life to protect her. However, she was now a beast deity. She was so powerful that no one could harm a single strand of her hair. So the value of his existence decreased again and again. It was only because he had guarded Snake for her for 1,000 years that she did not abandon him. It was already her kindness and charity that allowed him to stay by her side. He did not have the right to ask for more. Chinese Valentine's Day is actually quite suitable for the occasion, isn't it? Leah swayed his tail seductively with a faint smile. Gu Mengmeng smiled at Leah. He was the one with the strongest jealousy in the family. Elvis had the status of the first partner and rarely showed any signs of jealousy. Although Snake was overbearing, after experiencing 3 lifetimes of separation and reunion, he already knew that he could not be Gu Mengmeng's only one. Moreover, he was indebted to Gregory, so he was very tolerant towards Gregory. Only Leah did not hide his jealousy. He always guarded against anything other than partners who had already become a fact. But now, he was the one who stood up for Gregory. It was rather refreshing. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Leah leaned forward and bit Mengmeng's earlobe gently. He said flirtatiously, "Your gaze makes me want to eat you up." Gu Mengmeng pushed Leah away and snuggled into Elvis's arms, not wanting to bother with this indecent fox. "Xiaomeng, you've been testing him for more than 1,000 years, and we've all acknowledged him as a family member. If you like him, then give him a chance." Gu Mengmeng looked up at Elvis, not knowing what to do. It was not that she was shy. Gregory had lived with her family for thousands of years, and she had long regarded him as her own man in her heart. However, that layer of window paper had not been pierced through for 1,000 years, and the dust on it had long been as thick as the city walls. Now that he suddenly wanted to stab her, she didn't know how to face it. Just as she was hesitating, a grip tightened around her waist and she was lifted up from Elvis's arms by Snakel. He stared at Gu Mengmeng for a while before extending his arm to hand her over to Gregory. "Take this. Take good care of her before Chinese Valentine's Day. The digression the Mid-Autumn Festival is starting. Are you surprised? Are you surprised?" But I'll say in advance that Gregory did not have much content. Chapter 1726. Gregory was a little agitated, his hands shaking as he hugged Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng did not resist and just leaned into Gregory's arms, looking at the other 3 males in her family. Their smiles were too natural, too in sync. It was as if this scene had happened 1,000 years ago and they had already mentally prepared themselves. And the only ones who were at a loss were her and Gregory. The private plane was very spacious and there were 4 individual rooms. Elvis and the rest found an excuse and returned to their own rooms, avoiding each other and leaving the space for Gregory, the slow-witted fellow. They thought that after Snakel became the leader, Gregory would immediately confess to Gu Mengmeng and ask for an identity. At that time, they thought that they should make things difficult for him and let him know the rules of the family. However, this male who was the last to enter the family was the most law-abiding one in the entire family. After 1,000 years, they were about to turn into giraffes. He was finally enlightened and wanted to confess. The three males all felt an inexplicable sense of comfort. Naturally, they would not destroy it. Originally, being able to fly was my advantage. But now, if you want to ascend to the heavens, you no longer have to depend on me. It seemed like it had been 1,000 years since he hugged her like this. The last time was on Mota Mountain. Planes can fly, but it's different from you. You are irreplaceable, so don't think like that. Baby Meng, I miss you so much. For the past 1,000 years, we have never separated, we have always been together. Even when I look at you, I still miss you very much. Even when I hug you, I still miss you very much. I have no choice but to think of you all the time. Gu Mengmeng lowered her head, her eyes filled with guilt and apology. Previously, you were always sneaking around, I thought you had found someone you like here. Gregory's body stiffened and he probed, Are you doubting my loyalty? Gu Mengmeng shook her head and answered, It's just that here, I am no longer special. You can randomly pick a girl on the streets and she is very likely to be more outstanding, gentler, prettier and more loyal than me. So I am thinking if you fall in love with someone else here, should I let you off? After all, I have already trained you for 1,000 years. Baby Meng, look at me. Gu Mengmeng looked up at Gregory's eyes. His eyes were very clear and had the unique cleanliness of a person who had been baptized by wind and snow. The bright and clear reflection of her shadow was focused and affectionate. The eyes of birds are the sharpest. No matter how far away we are, we can accurately see what we want to see. In my eyes, there is nothing but you. Whether there are outstanding, gentle, beautiful, and loyal girls in this world or not, it has nothing to do with me. As long as it's not you, it won't enter my eyes. I can't see anyone but you. But you've already looked at me for 1,000 years. Aren't you tired of it? What I'm doing every day besides looking at you is breathing. If I can get tired of looking at you, I can probably stop breathing. Gu Mengmeng smiled and took the initiative to kiss Gregory. The first kiss that had been delayed for 1,000 years made Gregory petrified in an instant. He was so stiff that he didn't dare to move. Chapter 1727. After returning to F country, Snake had to settle his family matters and was extremely busy. Elvis and Leah also had to settle the fiery flames and had little free time. The Chinese Valentine's Day was 2 days later and the people in F country did not celebrate this festival, so there was not much of a festive atmosphere. Gregory held Gu Mengmeng's hand as they boarded the high-speed train. Actually, there were countless luxury cars parked in the garage, but if they drove those cars out, it would be too conspicuous and attract attention. He did not want some irrelevant people to affect his rare time alone with her, so he chose the most low-key way to travel. There were quite a lot of people on the high-speed train and Gregory's heart ached that Gu Mengmeng would be squeezed, so he used his arms to create a small space for her, hugging her in his chest. Gu Mengmeng wrapped her arms around Gregory's waist, then pressed her little face against his chest. She looked like a little woman in love, making one feel pity and love for her. As the train swayed, her little face rubbed against his chest, making his entire body go numb as if he was electrified. He could not help but lower his head to kiss the top of her head. When they reached a certain station, Gregory carried Gu Mengmeng down the train and walked to the entrance of a seemingly ancient courtyard with familiarity. This small courtyard was a standalone building that had a very aged feel. It was a typical ancient European building, but it was obviously in decline and lacked maintenance, so it looked so down and out. After pressing the doorbell, there was a quick response from inside. Looking at the person who opened the door, Gu Mengmeng was stunned and surprised. Fei Rui? Gu Mengmeng tilted her head to look at Gregory and asked with a smile, You always tell me that you have something to do, so you came to find Fei Rui? Gregory nodded with a smile on his face. If he knew what kind of person Gu Mengmeng was in the past, he would not be smiling so calmly now. After all, she had been fantasizing about Elvis and Leah for a long time. If not for that one time when she was drunk and fantasizing, Elvis took it seriously and almost killed Leah before committing suicide, she might still be unable to change her fujoshi trait. It was the most loving when two beautiful brothers were together. Birds fall in love with fish. She seemed to have told this story to the females in the tribe before. But she had never said that the bird and the fish had to be a male and a female. While Gu Mingming's thoughts were running wild, Gregory had already carried her into Fei Rue's courtyard. The courtyard was filled with greenery and exuberant vitality. Unlike the desolation outside the courtyard, this place was warm and tranquil, giving off a feeling of paradise. Passing through the small courtyard, there was a glass piano room with a wooden piano in it. One could tell that it had been there for at least a few decades or even 100 years. Grace has a surprise for you. Fei Rue's eyes were bright, and his smile was as clean as a child's. I look forward to it. Gu Mingming returned a smile before looking at Gregory. Gregory was a little hesitant, but he still held Gu Mingming's little hand and pulled her into his arms. Seeing that she didn't resist, he kissed her forehead. His movements had always been slow and careful, as if he was afraid that she would hate him, but also because he cherished her too much, he didn't dare to be rough at all. I wrote a song for you. Gu Mingming looked at Gregory and Fei Rue in surprise. Chapter 1728. Fei Rue did not know how to sing, but he played the piano extremely well. Gregory's voice was a natural singer and the lyrics were written by him. They were filled with love for Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming felt goosebumps all over her body from the first line. She could clearly feel her blood boiling and spreading through her body. At that moment, Gu Mingming felt as if she could see the sunlight shining on Gregory's body through the glass, giving him a warm glow. His eyes were filled with love. It had been settled for 1,000 years and was extremely deep. Every word and sentence was a shared memory between the two of them for 1,000 years. The first time she went up to Motu, she forced him to jump off the cliff with her own life. The second time she went up to Motu, they spent 7 days together as if they were passionately in love. There was also their separation in life and death, waiting for 1,000 years. Even in the 1,000 years after his return, those trivial matters that she had forgotten became the most blissful memories in his songs. She was attracted by his singing and was completely immersed in the musical atmosphere created by him and Fei Rue. She could not extricate herself. Gregory was really too charming at that moment. When Fei Rue's last note ended, Gu Mingming could not recover from the musical feast that was held just for her for a long time. Gregory walked towards Gu Mingming, stepping on the scattered sunlight. He shook his shoulders slightly and then opened his arms to form a pair of wings. At that moment, Gu Mingming felt as if she had seen an angel. She threw herself into Gregory's embrace and wrapped her arms around Gregory's neck, kissing him deeply on the lips. His wings came together from both sides and enveloped her completely. This kiss was a kiss that had been late for 1,000 years. He did not allow anyone to disturb or spy on them. I'm very touched, really very touched. Gu Mingming's eyes were moist because of his 1,000 years of deep love. Being able to tell you everything is the happiest thing that has ever happened to me. Gregory's wings slowly transformed into arms and he gently hugged her slender body in his arms. Baby Meng, I'm sorry. I don't have the ability of the other family members to adapt to the rules of this world so quickly. I've always felt very lost. I don't know what position I should have by your side in this world. Elvis and the rest have already prepared everything that you need. Therefore, the only thing I can give you is this unchanging, 1,000-year sincerity. Can you please allow such a useless person like me to become your partner and celebrate Chinese Valentine's Day with you? This title should have been given to him a long time ago. It was just that he didn't say it. She waited for a long time and gradually forgot about it. It wasn't a surprise that he suddenly brought it up, but her heart still palpitated a little and she felt a little shy. How should I put it? Her marriage to Elvis and Leah was a result of circumstances and atmosphere. It was just a matter of time. As for Snake, There was no need to even mention him. That overbearing guy didn't even give her a chance to refuse. Just like that, he branded his mark on her body. Gregory was the first person to ask for her opinion in such a serious manner. He placed too much emphasis on rules. Gu Mengmeng had no doubt that as long as she showed even the slightest hint of rejection, he would immediately strangle this confession that he had been preparing for 1,000 years and return to the position of a guardian beast that he could not speak of. He would guard that lonely position and never step out of it even if he died. Out of topic. Chapter 1729. Gu Mengmeng took a deep breath. Compared to Gregory, she was after all a veteran who had been married 3 times. She should act more mature and generous. After all, Gregory was only 16 years old when she became the mother of 4 wolf pups. The flower bud of the motherland had become a 1,000-year-old demon even if she didn't bring harm to the country. Her moral integrity had long been shattered to the point where it couldn't be put back together. Reaching out a tender little hand, Gu Mengmeng gently caressed the side of Gregory's face. "Do you know that I have been waiting for this request for 1,000 years?" Gregory was stunned. He suddenly did not know how to continue. Actually, he had already mentally prepared himself for Gu Mengmeng's rejection or even abandonment. It was just death. If she did not want him, he would fly to the sky, then retract his wings and order the birds to eat him up, leaving his soul in the sky forever. That way, no matter where she was, he would be able to continue looking at her. He was betting on the possibility of less than 1%. He was betting that she would be soft-hearted and agree reluctantly on account of his 1,000 years of companionship and his broken wings and blindness. But she said that she had been waiting for this request of him for 1,000 years? So, it was all his fault. He was too weak and had no courage. That was why he had wasted these 1,000 years. His eyes flashed. He hugged Gu Mengmeng tightly in his arms. "Sorry, baby Meng. I am too useless. I made you wait for so long. It's all right to wait a little longer. As long as you are here, it's good." Gregory could feel a warmth spreading through his body. For the first time, he took the initiative to kiss her lips. That was an action that he had practiced thousands of times in his dreams. When he finally put it into practice, he could not remember the meaning of practicing against the air for thousands of years. He only knew that he was intoxicated and blissful. Everything was guided by his instincts. "Fei Rue is still here," Gu Mengmeng gently pushed against Gregory, who was about to take her on the spot. Turning back, she realized that little Fei Rue, who was playing the piano just now, had already disappeared. "When you pounced into my arms and kissed me, he had already left." "So you spread your wings just to make it easier for him to sneak away?" "Yeah, I don't want anyone to distract you. I hope that you will only look at me." "Is there anyone else here besides you and me?" Gregory shook his head and said, "I can't afford a building like a castle. My money is only enough to buy a small villa like this." "You don't like living in a castle?" "No," said Grace. "I'm not picky about where I live as long as I have you. But I have to prepare a nest for you. If you're willing to lay eggs for me in the future, I can't possibly let you lay eggs on a tree branch, can I?" Gu Mengmeng sneered but did not say anything to hurt Gregory. She just asked, "Then where did you get the money to buy this villa?" "Fei Rue and I signed a record contract with an entertainment company and debuted as singers as a group. I had Leia look over the contract. There's nothing wrong with it. I used all of the signing fee to buy this house. Baby Meng, I'm sorry. I didn't give you the money I earned and made the decision on my own. But I promise, I will only act on my own this time. In the future, every penny I earn will be given to you, and I won't keep it for myself. Don't be mad at me, okay?" Chapter 1730. Gregory did not say a word and just looked at Gu Mengmeng quietly. Gu Mengmeng smiled and said slowly, "In the beast world, you were the highest existence in the Mota Mountains. You were untainted by dust and only accompanied by the cold wind and snow. Your skin was as white as snow and bones were as cold as ice, just like a deity. For me, you entered the 3,000 secular world. You were willing to shed your pride and become like an ordinary orc. It was as if you only lived for me. Later on, because of me, you broke your wings and even lost your pair of eyes that overlooked the world. I can't forget how you looked with your back facing me when you were covered in injuries. I can't forget how you were able to remain calm even when the earth shook and mountains shook. But because of me, you panicked and your eyes were filled with tears of blood. You silently guarded Snake for 1,000 years but didn't ask me for credit for this after you came back. Now it's for me. You are clearly not good at socializing with others and clearly feel uncomfortable being the center of attention. But just to prepare a nest for me, you are actually willing to stand under the flashing lights and bear everyone's gaze. You clearly said that birds have their own pride and that their songs are only for courtship. But now, Gu Mengmeng could not finish the rest of her words. She could not use such derogatory words to describe Gregory's sacrifice for her. He gave up the pride of being the heaviest species of birds for her. She could not let his giving up make her feel inferior. For you, no matter what I do, it's only right. It's not like that, Gregory. In this world, there is no one who gives up for others without asking for anything in return. You're doing this because you love me. I know that. Gregory's heart trembled slightly. He loved her and she knew it. That was enough. On a romantic night with the stars shining brightly, Gregory hugged Xia Xiangxi in a room filled with fresh flowers and completed their 1,000-year love. Looking at the little person sleeping peacefully in his arms, the ice in Gregory's eyes melted into a trickle and flowed onto her body. It was unstoppable and irreversible. A vulture spread its wings on her shoulder blade, as if her delicate and beautiful back was his entire sky. That's nice, Grace said. Although this was not the position closest to his heart, he was extremely satisfied. After Snake mated with Gu Mengmeng, the protection mark he had left behind had already disappeared. What replaced it was a dark green snake on his chest. The fact that she had no one to protect her had always been a sore point for Grace. Now that he had become the eyes behind her back, his wish had been fulfilled. Compared to anywhere else, this mark was the most satisfying to him. From now on, her back would be guarded by him. It was a sense of responsibility and mission that arose spontaneously. I will protect you well forever. When Gu Mengmeng woke up the next day, she was in a daze. However, have you ever had that experience? He slept until his arms were numb. He wanted to turn over, but he found that he couldn't move at all. When he came to his senses, he realized that he was in midair. Yes, she was in midair. On Grace's back. She was tied to her back with a bed sheet by Gregory without any sense of beauty. Then she was sent flying in the sky for an unknown reason. Grace? Gu Mengmeng called out, and what answered her was a chirp. All right, after her son, she now had trouble communicating with her own man. He had become a beast deity, but still could not understand the beast language. What kind of heaven-defying bug was this? Was no one going to fix it? Aside from the topic, let's not write about Gregory's meat for now. Chapter 1731. Gregory circled the sky once, before finding the tallest tree and stopping at its crown. Gu Mengmeng then realized that they were no longer in the vicinity of the villa. They had even left the city and entered the deep mountains and forests. Why are we here? Gu Mengmeng looked at Gregory, who had transformed into his human form and casually tied a bedsheet around his body, giving off the aura of a Roman prince. She deeply felt the importance of one's face. Even if a handsome man had a bedsheet draped over him, he would still be a male model at the forefront of the Paris Fashion Week. But when this bedsheet was draped over her just now, it should be about the same as the patients in Qingshan Mental Hospital. Look. Gregory smiled and rubbed the top of Gu Mengmeng's head with his chin. Then he raised his hand and pointed to the east. Gu Mengmeng looked in the direction of his hand. There was a faint orange light shining through the darkness. Sunrise? Yeah. Gregory replied gently. Then he rested his chin on the top of Gu Mengmeng's head, letting her little face lean against his chest. He said in a hoarse, infatuated voice that had been honed after 1,000 years of gentleness, "When we parted ways with Modo, I was thinking that if the legend is true and I can come back alive, I will bring you along and fly with me. I will watch the first sunrise and give you the first ray of warm sunlight so that you can become the first ray of light in this world. The sun was at the other end of the horizon, as if it was carrying 1,000 pounds of weight. Even the first inch was difficult to resist. When the huge orange light finally appeared, it broke through all the obstacles and shone in all directions, dispersing all the darkness in this world. That moment of emotion was indescribable. Gu Mengmeng retracted her gaze and looked at Gregory's face. His smile was gentle and elegant. He did not have the intense heat that the other men in her family had. It was as if he wanted to melt her and become one with her the moment he saw her. Gregory was the complete opposite. He took care of her carefully and protected her completely, not wanting her to be harmed in the slightest. He was like the wind, lingering around, omnipresent, never leaving for even a moment. However, he would not hinder one's progress, would not block one's vision, and would not affect one's decisions. He only quietly sent a wisp of coolness in the hot summer, or blowing on her face, or caressing her hair, or gently fluttering the edge of her skirt. He used all of his gentleness and treated her well for 1,000 years without her noticing. Today was probably the first sunrise in his world, right? From then on, the sunlight would dispel the darkness called loneliness, and he would no longer have to struggle outside of her world. He was her man. He was famous and had a share. Baby Meng, I still want to do something for you. Gregory placed Gu Mengmeng on his back, before maintaining his half-orc form to travel through the forest. Gu Mengmeng had experienced this kind of flight many times, but she still found it exciting. Hence, she giggled on Gregory's back and occasionally roared like Tarzan. Anyway, they were deep in the forest and were not afraid of attracting attention. Seeing that she was having fun, Gregory purposely pondered for a while longer. Finally, he chose a tree that was neither too tall nor too short and placed her on a thick branch. Chapter 1732. Gu Mengmeng nodded her head in agreement. Then, she watched as Gregory jumped down the tree and got into a stance. Gu Mengmeng was a little confused. She did not know what Gregory was doing, but she could not deny that this stance looked pretty good. After a breath, Gregory started punching, kicking, jumping, somersaulting. He belonged to the category of abstinence. Just standing there quietly made Gu Mengmeng want to call him master. Now that he was moving, he looked even more like a celestial master from a sect, a peerless master. With a shake of his shoulders, he stood at his original spot and slowly stopped his stance. Gu Mengmeng was so absorbed in watching that she could not help but clap for Gregory at the same time. And with this clap, she naturally let go of her hands. Losing her balance, Gu Mengmeng fell down from the tree. Gregory had been observing Gu Mengmeng all along. Naturally, he would not let her fall. So, he spread his wings, and when he was in front of her, he turned his wings into arms and hugged her tightly. Then he landed on the ground. Gu Mengmeng was actually not too afraid of falling. Maybe it was because she had fallen too many times when she was the messenger of the beast deity and was already used to it. But at this moment, her heart still couldn't help but beat so fast that her face was a little hot, so hot that it was scorching. "Are you scared?" Grace asked with concern. Gu Mengmeng shook her head and did not say a word. Gregory placed Gu Mengmeng on the ground and let her sit on the protruding root of the tree. Then, he checked her body carefully to see if she was injured. "What kind of stance did you use just now? It was so beautiful." Gregory was kneeling on one knee on the ground, checking Gu Mengmeng's wrist. When he heard that, he looked up and his gaze was filled with warmth. "I should be the one asking you this question." Gu Mengmeng tilted her head in confusion. "This set of martial arts was created by you, but you did not name it." Gu Mengmeng was at a loss. She did not understand at all. Gregory placed her wrist down and maintained his kneeling position. He placed his hands on both sides of Gu Mengmeng's body for support. His upper body leaned forward slightly and he leaned closer to Gu Mengmeng. "When you were preparing to retrieve the love of the sky, we spent 7 days in the cave at the top of Mota Mountain. At that time, you drew a portrait of me. Do you remember?" Gu Mengmeng smiled awkwardly. To think that Gregory could so calmly call that Crayon Shinchan has something on his mind portrait. This was definitely a dark history, and Gu Mengmeng felt that there was no need to remember it so clearly. But looking at Gregory's expectant eyes, she answered honestly, I remember. Before you painted my portrait, you also painted other things on the wall. Do you remember? Gu Mengmeng thought about it and felt a little lost. Grace picked up a branch from the side and started drawing on the ground. Gu Mengmeng looked at it seriously for a long time before she suddenly remembered that she had drawn these little matchstick figures fighting on the walls of the cave. She even told Gregory in all seriousness that this was the martial arts esoterica that she had left behind. In the future, a fated person would jump down from the mountain peak and not fall to his death. Coincidentally, he would fall into this cave and obtain this esoterica. Then, he would cultivate the ultimate martial arts and become an unparalleled hero. At that time, she was talking nonsense. After Snake revived, the Hudua Mountains completely collapsed. I'm afraid that the fated person who did not die after jumping down from the cliff will not appear in that cave. I don't want to disappoint you, so let me be the unparalleled hero. Aside from the topic, someone asked me if I was going to write Snake's side story. Wasn't Domineering Senior Falls in Love with Me just Snake's side story? What side story? No, Snake didn't have a solo side story. Chapter 1733. Gu Mengmeng's heart skipped a beat as she looked at Gregory's deep and serious eyes. She was fooling around, but he carefully and cautiously collected it. The feeling of being treasured was really good. You even remember these? Gregory held Gu Mengmeng's hand and kissed it. In those 1,000 years in the mountain, I relied on the memories of those 7 days when you were by my side to survive. Every scene had been replayed in my mind for 1,000 years. How could I forget it? Moreover, I don't have to deliberately remember everything about you, but I will never forget. The sun had completely risen. The bright sunlight shone through the layers of leaves and shone on Gregory's body. There was a unique fog rising in the forest, giving him an ethereal aura. Gu Mengmeng was a little dazed as she looked at him. She still remembered that when Gregory first came to Sauter, Leah was quite guarded against him. He even lost confidence in his own beauty. He said that the beauty of the bird tribe was different from that of the land beasts, and the vulture tribe was the best of the best. He was afraid that after seeing too much of the wild and passionate ways of the land beasts, she would develop a kind of rare things are precious attitude towards Gregory. That coquettish fox was really afraid that he would fall in love with her after his beauty waned. With a gentle gaze, Gu Mengmeng reached out to caress Gregory's face. She chuckled. All right, let's go back. Mating is a big matter. We should inform our family. All right. Gregory answered calmly, but his heart was not at peace. For 1,000 years, he was by her side but did not even dare to hug her. He was afraid that she would hate him, afraid that she would abandon him, afraid that she would look at him coldly and look of rejection. Finally, he had become her male and truly belonged to her. It was his first time returning to the family he had been with for 1,000 years as an official partner. It was impossible for him not to be nervous. On the way back, they did not take the high-speed rail. Instead, Gregory transformed into a vulture and brought Gu Mengmeng back to the castle at a height of 6,000 feet. At this height, normal human eyes would not be able to see anything strange. Even if someone looked up, they would only see a bird flying across the sky. When he returned to the castle, the 3 men who were supposed to be busy were all sitting in the courtyard. Elvis leaned against the sycamore tree in the courtyard and sat on the ground. His back leaned against the tree trunk, one leg bent and the other straight. He placed an arm lightly on his bent knee and lowered his head, as if he was thinking about something, but also as if he was waiting quietly. Snake sat lazily on the steps at the entrance, most of his body hidden in the shade. Only that pair of slender and well-defined large hands were carelessly fiddling around under the sunlight, as if he was trying to grab something from the sunlight, or as if he was using the sunlight to warm his hands, so that she would not catch a cold when he hugged her. Leah had already set up a makeshift stove in the courtyard. There were all kinds of food on the stove that were already 80% done, as if waiting for someone to return. He just needed to increase the heat to prepare the most suitable food for her. "We're back," Gu Mengmeng said softly, and the three men in the courtyard looked up. What was rare was that no one stood up to greet her. They just stared at her face, as if waiting for her to announce something. Chapter 1734. I have mated with Gregory. Gu Mengmeng answered honestly. The three men in the family were not surprised by this news. In fact, they were the ones who created the opportunity for him to succeed and become a true member of their family. Gu Mengmeng looked at the three men still sitting there motionlessly, feeling a little lost. Was he angry? It did not seem like it. Not angry? Then what was the meaning of them not moving? Gu Mengmeng looked at Gregory, but he just smiled at her and did not say a word. It seemed like the whole family knew what this meant, except for her. Gu Mengmeng walked to Elvis in confusion. Elvis opened his arms with a gentle gaze. He did not take the initiative to hug her and just waited for her to enter his arms. Gu Mengmeng felt a little weird but did not think much about it. She just snuggled into Elvis's arms and looked up at him, asking, "What's wrong with you guys? You look weird." Elvis lowered his head and kissed Gu Mengmeng's forehead, saying, "We are afraid that you will forget the old and enjoy yourself to the point of forgetting home." What? Gu Mengmeng did not know whether to laugh or cry, saying, "How is Gregory considered a new person? He has lived with us for thousands of years." "But didn't you just taste him for the first time last night?" Gu Mengmeng blushed and punched Elvis's chest, saying, "You're so annoying." Elvis smiled indulgently and allowed her to behave atrociously in his arms. He was not angry at all and only discussed with her seriously, "Are you satisfied with his performance?" Gu Mengmeng looked at him and asked, "Are you satisfied?" Gu Mengmeng's face was so red that she could not say a word. She glared at Elvis coquettishly. He had learned bad things. He was now the first partner of a racer. "Xiaomeng, you have 4 Beast Kings by your side now." Gu Mengmeng choked and suddenly looked up at Gregory. Only then did she realize that the feathers around his ears seemed to have changed. The color was more vibrant and even had a golden luster. "You? When did you?" "I upgraded halfway through the mating process. At that time, you might not have noticed." Gu Mengmeng held her forehead and buried her face into Elvis's chest. If only she had noticed at that time. Among the Beast Kings, their abilities are almost the same. The status of the 4 of us in the family could no longer be determined by force like in the beast world. So, what the 4 of us are waiting for now is for you to re-establish the family order. Gu Mengmeng looked at Elvis with a dumbfounded expression and said, "Haven't we been getting along well in our family? Why do we need to establish order? Just let it be like this." Fool. Elvis kissed Gu Mengmeng's dazed little face and sighed helplessly. The males in the beast world and this era have different views on love and family, but there is one thing that is very similar, and that is the possessiveness. There's no need for order when it's just Leah and me, because we've been working together for many years before we met you and confirmed each other's family positions. When Snake returned, we did not rearrange the family order because we knew very well that Grace would one day become a member of our family. It was just that back then, he didn't think that he would have to wait for so long to mate. Fortunately, all of our family members are here. We are now a complete new family, so we naturally need a complete new order. But Xiaomeng, wolves are greedy by nature, foxes are cunning by nature, and snakes are selfish by nature. Chapter 1735. So no matter what your decision is, we will listen to it. Gu Mengmeng understood. No wonder the 3 of them were sitting there motionlessly. They were waiting for her to express her stance. She laughed softly before wrapping her arms around Elvis's neck and kissing him softly. The family rules are always set by the first partner. Aren't females only responsible for enjoyment? Why am I the one to be burdened now? No way, no way. Elvis was stunned for 2 seconds before he smiled and kissed Gu Mengmeng's lips gently. Xiaomeng is right. I was wrong. He thought that Leah was always the best at pleasing her. He thought that Snake's mark was on her heart. She thought that Gregory was a newly favored lover. So it would be hard for him to keep his position as the first partner. But it turned out that he was wrong. His position in Xiaomeng's heart had never changed. No matter how many strong and handsome males she took in, he would always be the first partner in her heart. Carrying Gu Mingming, he stood up and walked to Snake, asking, "Are you convinced now?" Snake looked up, his entire being lazy. Was he angry? Not really. But he would still feel a little uncomfortable. He was still not the most reliable person in Tuming's heart. But it didn't matter. He didn't want to make things difficult for her. He didn't forget that time in the Snake King Valley when he only whipped Elvis once with his tail and Tuming almost lost her life for biting him. If he really wanted the position of the first partner, he had so many chances to kill Elvis and Leah. He just couldn't bear for her to shed another tear. She stood up lazily and walked 2 steps forward to stand behind Elvis. This meant that she had acknowledged his position as the first partner and was willing to be below him. Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng to Leah and asked, "Do you have any doubts?" Leah swayed his large tail and carried the small bowl to Gu Mengmeng. His pair of fox eyes were filled with a myriad of amorous emotions, charming and affectionate. He scooped a small spoonful of meat paste and said, "I'm very jealous and was never suitable to be the first partner. I just want to be a beast man who can fight for favor openly. I don't want to be bound by those responsibilities and obligations. As for me, as long as Xiaomingming's heart always leans towards me, I'll be satisfied." Gu Mingming's eyes lit up as she took a bite of the meat Leah sent to her mouth. Ever since this guy came to modern times, his culinary skills had improved by leaps and bounds, as if he had turned on a cheat code. "Xiaomingming, tell me, who do you think is better looking, me or Gregory?" "You're pretty." Without waiting for Gu Mingming's reply, Gregory spoke first. "I am the last male to join the family. I know my place and will not fight with you for your favor." Leah choked and snorted. "That's why I don't like you." Gu Mingming chuckled. She understood what Leah meant too well. Gregory made it sound as though Leah had already lost with just a no contest. It was true that he didn't mean it, but it was really too harsh. Gu Mingming knew that she had just mated with Gregory yesterday. Even if the 3 males at home did not say anything, they would definitely feel uncomfortable in their hearts. So she naturally had to appease them at this time. Chapter 1736. Gu Mingming hung in Li's arms and Leah passed his tail to her out of habit. She had a serious fetish for plush. Under Li's intentional nurturing, this problem became more and more serious. She knew but did not resist. Leah was the most insecure out of the 4 partners. His childhood had determined his character. Even after 1,000 years, some things were hard to change once they had taken shape. In the family, he was not like Elvis, who was the first partner and indispensable. He was not like Snake, who left a mark on her heart which was the most special. He could only rely on her love to comfort himself. But now that Gregory, this little fresh meat, had joined the family, he was naturally more afraid that she would dislike him. So, her fetish for plush had become an important source of security for him. No matter what, she liked his tail. Gu Mingming's expression was one of enjoyment as she stroked his white and soft tail in her arms. "Leah, why aren't you a 9-tailed fox? If you had 9 tails, just thinking about it makes me happy." "Are you looking down on me?" Leah said as he acted like he was going to retract his tail. Gu Mingming was having a great time stroking him. How could she let him retract his tail? No, one is good enough. One cannot be too greedy. I am content. Li's smile was a little triumphant, but it was filled with a lot of pampering. Actually, it was not entirely because he lacked a sense of security that he indulged Gu Mingming's fetish for plush. More of it was because he craved her satisfied expression. What she liked should be satisfied. Elvis turned around and looked at Gregory, asking, "Then, what about you? Do you have anything to say about being the first partner?" Gregory shook his head, his gaze landing on Gu Mingming's face, who was playing with Li's tail happily. Now that I have a status and can openly accompany her by her side, I am already satisfied. I never dared to dream of being the first partner from the start. Elvis nodded and said, "All right, since that's the case, then as the first partner, I will announce the 3 rules of our family. 1. Do not let Xiaomeng cry. 2. Do not let her swear. 3. Do not let her tell legends." "Yes," the other 3 said in unison. However, after this sound, the entire world began to shake. Gu Mengmeng was shocked and did not understand. Elvis quickly carried Gu Mengmeng back into his arms and looked at Snake. Only he was familiar with everything in the illusory realm. Snake sighed helplessly and said, "The environment is ultimately an illusion. It cannot withstand the power of the 4 beast kings." Gu Mengmeng stared in bewilderment as everything in this world gradually disappeared before her eyes like a faded oil painting. Then, the scenery in front of them was replaced by an endless grassland. She had returned to the world of her beast god. However, this place was different from when she went to the dreamland. Unknowingly, a mountain range had appeared in the grassland. The shape, Moto? Snake chuckled and rubbed Gu Mengmeng's head. "Let's go in and take a look. There's a surprise." Gu Mengmeng did not understand but still signaled Elvis to go over to take a look. Without another word, Elvis transformed into a wolf and carried Gu Mengmeng on his back, flying towards Motu. When they reached the entrance, they saw a small stream. It was clear and cold, like flowing ice, with bits of light and shadow. On the other side of the stream, there were many people sitting around. At a glance, there were the 16 valued females, the Snow Fox tribesmen, the 16 tribes, the old tribesmen of Saint Nazir. The leader was a chubby little bear bun. When he saw Gu Mengmeng, he immediately stood up and waved at her. "Girl, you're finally back. We've waited for you for so long." "Sandy!" Gu Mengmeng's voice was choked with emotions. She was indescribably touched. Pouncing over, the 2 females hugged each other. They were so emotional that they could not say a word. The 4 males looked at each other and smiled. Although it was a little strenuous to forcefully support a world with the power of a beast king, it was all worth it to make Gu Mengmeng so happy. The 3 of them had tried many times in the past to no avail. Now that Gregory had joined them, the 4 beast kings each held up a corner of the beast deity world and finally succeeded in activating the complete mode of the beast deity world. Kind orcs would return to the embrace of the beast deity after they died. In the beast deity world, there was no pain, no difference, no enemies, only endless warmth and happiness. They would be together with the beast deity in that world. So, this legend was not a lie. Aside from the topic, recommending Susu's new articles, Warm Pillow, Don't Stop Taking Sio's Medicine, Reborn Demon Concubine, Uncle Won't Attend Court Early Tomorrow. They were all one-on-one sweet love articles. The treasures that followed Susu here were definitely her true love. This story had ended, but Susu was still around. So don't be regretful, don't be sad. Let's meet again in the new article. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.